Hey guys, it's Tombox here. Welcome to the part 2 of the set analysis of Soul Fusion, our soul-infused tofu, Sofu. Okay, so this is going to be part 2. So part 2 is going to be the more in-depth analysis. If you haven't checked out the first part, which is just all the hype stuff, all the secrets, just watch that one first if that's all you're interested in. But if you're in it for the long ride, this one is for you, as we're going to be talking about all the new archetypes, new supports, and some old supports getting some revamp, as well as whatever that Konami is throwing at the wall and seeing what sticks. So this is what we're going to be talking about and providing you guys with quick knowledge. I'm going to try to keep it under 40 minutes, so I will be running and gunning. Alright, and huge shout outs to the new Patreons, and you guys make it worthwhile. Every single time a new Patreon comes in, I heal like 5,000 life points or something like that. You know, that's how it works. Life points. Patreon. That's how it works. Anyways, let's get straight into the most hyped archetype in this particular set. Okay, for the first archetype we're going to be talking about, it's going to be Thunder Dragons. It's a given. They are the ones having the most success in terms of stuff coming from Soul Fusion, this Soul Tofu. So to break it down, this is the Bank Breaker archetype. You're going to be spending upwards of a lot of money because you have a lot of Ultras and a lot of Seekers. A lot just being 2, but still, since this is coming from the same box, you're expected to spend at least 3 boxes worth of money to actually complete this entire box, if you're lucky. That's only if you're lucky. If you're not lucky, well, you're gonna hit here and there, and then you need to do some trades. You're gonna spend a lot more time. And yugioh Singles is not available anymore too, so that's gonna be a bit of a trouble. Okay, anyways, let's go straight into this. So you have 2 fusions. Both fusions have 2 summoning conditions, one through fusing, one through the regular, I guess, their own method, which is for the Colossus. Colossus will be able to summon itself if you've activated a Thunder monster from your hand and you control a non-fusion one. You get to tribute the non-fusion guy that's on the field, and you get to spam him out straight from the extra deck. Really easy. And as for our Titan brother, he's pretty easy too. You just need a fusion Thunder monster on the field and a Thunder monster in your hand, banish both of them, and now you can just drop him onto the field. The thing about this deck, it's aggro, it's control, it's combo, it's got a bit of everything, so it's got a full package running for it. But in terms of stun capability and opening play, it's very consistent, and that's why this is one to be reckoned with, especially when it comes to the main monster lineup. But these guys are very big and they have self-protecting effect, especially the one that prevents you from searching. If this guy is on the field, just remember your opponent cannot search. I've had so many games where people just completely forget that they can't search. Or like, oh, I can easily out that. I'm just going to search for this card. Yeah, they can't search. Your opponent cannot add cards from either player's deck from the deck to the hand, except by drawing them. So they're just under one-sided mistake. This one is a little different. You get to pop cards as long as you're activating Thunder monsters from your hand. You get to chain this card and you get to pop a card. Remember, it is a quick effect, so your opponent has an opportunity to interrupt the chain, so you might not get your pop effect. So there is that. So they might just forcefully activate certain things so that they can't pop it anymore. There's that going on for it. Now, in terms of the Thunder Dragon Roar, Dark, and Hawk, they all have 2 effects. One is well, technically they have 2 trigger-based effects, and they're hard ones per turn, so you can only use one or the other. So the dark ones, they are very good for getting banished and getting sent from field to graveyard. That's one trigger, and the other effect is more of like an ignition or quick effect where they can just discard themselves, which is what Thunder Dragons do best, and they'll have an effect there. So for the dark ones, you want to banish them. I guess for Roar, when you discard it from your hand, you get to add any Thunder Dragon card from the graveyard back to your hand, which is okay, that's not bad. But when you banish this card, you get to summon out a Thunder Dragon from the deck. Just straight up. Yeah. So when it's sent from field to grave or banished, special summon. As for the other card, we have Thunder Dragon Dark. Dark is when you banish this card or send from field to grave, add any Thunder Dragon card from the deck to the hand. If you just discard this card, it has a quick effect to discard itself. You get to add another copy of itself, but you can't use the search effect anymore. As for Hawk, Hawk is a revival card. You get to revive cards if you discard this from the banish pile or from the graveyard. It doesn't target, which is amazing, so you don't have to worry too much, but you're gonna get called by the grave quite easily. That's just a fact. As for the banish effect and the one that's sent to the graveyard from the field, you got a magical mallet. Thunder Dragon Fusion, it lets you fuse from the field, banish pile, or grave back into the extra deck or the main deck, and then you just drop them, lets you recycle all your dudes, and you can banish this card from the graveyard to add a Thunder monster. This is a boss chaos monster, 1 light, 1 dark, because your Thunder Dragons are now light and dark, and if you destroy a monster, well, you get to banish, I believe, banish a card in your graveyard and add a Thunder monster from the deck to the hand. Pretty neat. As for some summon summoner, just unofficial member of the Thunder Dragon lineup, he is requiring 2 Thunder monsters. You can make this quite easily. He has a very basic effect of just reviving a Thunder monster from the graveyard during your opponent's turn, and only during your opponent's turn, but it does open up 2 zones, so you can make big Thunder Dragons quite quickly. Then we have our Thunder Dragon Matrix, hand trap, 500 attack gain. If you ditch it from your hand, quick effect of course, or if you manage to send this card from field to grave or banish it, you get to add another copy of itself back to your hand. It's quite simple. Thunder Dragon Streamer, boom, it is your MST, and I believe you also get to banish a Thunder monster from your deck if you do summon out a Thunder monster, and that will also trigger the spell popping. This is the summon spammer. I don't really like this card, but if you do have it, you can special summon all the ones of the same names out of the graveyard, but they do get banished when they leave, which to me doesn't matter as much because you proc off other effects as well. But yeah, that's the summary of the Thunder Dragons, and prepare your bank because you're about to get it ripped wide open. And for the new archetype that you need to get tickets for, because the Orchestra is in town for the Orcus. The legacy continues in the World Legacy Saga. And what do we have here? We have the first card, the Return. Orchestra Return. This is the draw engine card of the deck. It's a secret rare. It's probably the cheapest secret rare of the entire set. And it lets you draw 2 cards by sending one of your Orcus or World Legacy cards face up on the field or in your hand to the graveyard. So it's limited once per turn because the deck really utilizes the graveyard, and that's where most of the free summons are going to be coming from. Okay, so in terms of the link monsters, all their effects are based off of cost and reward, and depending on the higher the link, the higher the cost of returning stuff that's banished back into the deck. So starting off with the link for the main one, and the open zones for your opponent, because you want your opponent's stuff to be linked for massive benefits, and it also gives you a protection effect that it's linked. Quick refresher on link is that if a monster is linked past tense, it just means your monster is pointing to it, and both your monster and that monster would be considered as linked. Okay, that's my refresher. Starting with the big boss monster of the Orchestron. Looks like Vegnagun from Final Fantasy X-2. Yeah, you know what? It's a really pretty card. This thing should be turned into a mat. I swear it would be one of the most beautiful mats out there. Now it requires 2 effect monsters as 2+ effect monsters as the material, and this linked card cannot be destroyed by battle card effect. So there's benefits of pointing to your opponent, because if they put a monster there, it's linked as well. And you can, for cost, spin back 3 of your machines that are banished, and then whatever that your opponent's face-up stuff that are linked, whether you're pointing to it or whether or not they're pointing to it, those monsters have their effects negated and they go to 0 attack and defense permanently. So it's a very big deficit when you do hit them hard like that. Yeah, so this is one of the big boss monsters. In terms of the other 2, we have a Galatea, the Orcus Automaton. This one lets you get a Orcus spell or trap directly from the deck, and you can just set it onto the field, so it can really speed up your plays. And then you also have Longrisu, which is like Ningrisu, but different. This guy, whenever he's linked, he cannot be destroyed by card effects, and you can target 2 of your banished machine type monsters and shuffle them back into the deck, and then you can send one of your opponent's linked monster they control it to the graveyard. Yeah, so that's why it points to your opponent more often than your own stuff. That's why the arrows are just kind of all over the place, if you ask me. Okay, then we have the main deck monsters. All of these monsters, they have effects when they're banished from the graveyard. You can banish these guys from the graveyard, and they all special summon from different spaces. Now we have ourselves the Bombard, base Bombard, we have our Harp Horo, and we have Symbol Skeleton. So for the base, you special summon out from the hand, I believe, when you banish yourself out from the graveyard. This one special summons from the deck, and this one you require 2 monsters, you have to banish yourself and then target one other Orcus monster in the graveyard and special summon that, so you get to revive a card. I believe there is a chain of events that you can use to actually spam out 2 dudes and start going into your combo. Then you have the World Legacy card. Well, the main effect here is that you can special summon a World Legacy from your hand if this card is sent to the graveyard. However, you can also banish this card from the graveyard, target one of your banished Orcus monster, and you can special summon that, and then you'll be locked into dark monsters for the rest of the turn. And of course, you're restricted to dark monster summoning only if you use any of these effects. So, really good member here. And finally, the last 4 cards, and I'm just getting to it. We have the Orcus Tower of Babel. This one is the field spell. I find it to be quite annoying. It turns all your monsters' effects into quick effects. Yeah. Anything that's in the graveyard or link monster you control, they are now quick effects, so you can start spamming out from anywhere. Especially your link monsters, where you can negate your opponent's stuff without really any effort, or you can send any of their link monsters to the graveyard. It becomes very relevant very quickly. And then there is the search card. Whenever your opponent normal summons or special summons a monster, well, you can take one of your Orcus cards or World Legacy from your hand or deck and send it to the graveyard or banish it, which lets you fuel your graveyard quite quickly. This one is basically a D barrier, except that you can target whatever you're going to banish whenever any player declares an attack, but you have to tribute a Orcus monster or a World Legacy card. And finally, we have Orchestrated Core. This is a protection-based trap. It's a continuous trap that can protect your stuff from being targeted, but if your stuff is about to be destroyed, you can send this card from the field to the graveyard instead. So that is it for the orchestrated stuff. And onto the Salamangreat. The Salamangreat is introduced into Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains through Soulburner. These are cards that he wields, and they are all Cybers type, and they are all Fire attribute. And so, that being said, they are a link spam deck which has a lot of recursion coming out from the graveyard, and the boss monsters, they can use themselves as material for another copy of themselves to gain additional effects. In terms of the main monster lineup, we have Jack Jaguar, we have Mir, we have Foxy, and we have Falco. Sounds like the cast of Star Fox, almost. Too bad you're not Wolf. But sorry. Anyways, let's go into Jack Jaguar. Jack Jaguar, if he's in the graveyard and you control a link monster, he can summon himself back out by shuffling another Salamangreat card or monster back into the deck. So if you use him to make a Heat Leo, I guess you could summon himself back out. Mir, whenever this is added to hand, you could summon it onto the field. Of course, it's hard once per turn. If this card's already in your hand, you could special summon it anyway by discarding a card. Yeah, pretty easy stuff. Then there's Foxy. If there's a face-up spell or trap on the field, you get to discard a Salamangreat card, special summon this card, and pop it. Very good for taking out stuff that they leave behind. And then there's Falco, which almost acts like a, I guess, Zephyros. If you have a Salamangreat monster on the field, you get to target that, put it back in your hand, and you get to special summon out this card from the graveyard. All of these also have other effects as well. I believe Foxy, on normal summon, you get to excavate the top 3 cards, add 1 card. This one, if it's sent to the graveyard, you can target one of your Salamangreat cards, spell a trap, and set it straight onto the field. So there's a lot of benefits to these guys. Yeah, so this one can combo well with Mir, so that when you add Mir back to your hand, you get to special summon Mir straight back onto the field. As for the ritual monster, Emerald Eagle, if you use another Emerald Eagle as your ritual material, you get to destroy all your opponent's special summon monsters, which is, I don't know, yeah, to me, that's pretty good. That's not that bad whatsoever. And at the start of the damage step, if you already activate the effect of tributing a Salamangreat Link monster, it gains the effect of, when you destroy a monster, you get to burn them. So yeah, you get the whole Flame Wingman effect. Then there's the ritual, this is the field spell. Field spell, Salamangreat Link monster you would use. You just use 1 monster to go into itself, so it's very quick and you can start to get their effects out fairly quickly. You have the ritual spell. Like any basic ritual, it can only summon out a Salamangreat monster, level equal to. If you control a Fire Link monster, however, you get to shuffle stuff from your graveyard back into your deck as the ritual cost. And then, if this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by a card effect, you can special summon the Emerald Eagle from your hand regardless. So just ignore summoning condition. So in other words, you would still set this card if you hold the Emerald Eagle and if you can't summon it. Then there is the Heart. This is the continuous spell. I haven't really read this card, so I'm just going to quickly go over it. You can special summon one Salamangreat monster from your hand or grave. Okay, so you got a once per turn monster reborn. That's pretty cool. You can send this card face up from the field to the graveyard and then target a Salamangreat Link monster you control that was Link summoned using itself. Special summon Salamangreat monster from your hand or graveyard in defense position up to the number of Link ratings, so you get to spam the boards. Somewhat like a Soul Charge. And then there's Salamangreat Gift. Discard a Salamangreat, send a Salamangreat from deck to grave, draw one card. And then I believe you can, if you have a Salamangreat Link monster with the same name that uses itself as a material, you can discard a Salamangreat and draw 2 cards. Okay, that's pretty neat. You can only use one effect or the other. So that's Salamangreat. So if there's any sort of cyber support, you could still use that as well to kind of boost up this deck. But remember, this is all fire attribute. Nightmare Phoenix is definitely a good bonus added into this to get a bit of a quicker access to some of these cards. But that is as fast as I can get through this. And maybe in the next set, we'll get more support for this archetype. Let's get ready to DINO! Okay, so we have the DINO wrestlers, the WWD, the World DINO Wrestling Federation is in town, and starting off this lineup, we have Rey Mysterio, or Capoe Raptor. So this particular monster is pretty good at generating some sort of advantage. If it attacks, it cannot be destroyed by battle, so in other words, it will beat over any 18 beat stick. And whenever it does attack, it goes to defense mode, and during the standby phase, it will summon another copy of Capoe Raptor out from the deck. Very useful stuff. Looking at all these monsters, these guys are the main beaters of the Sneak Peek matchup, so just something to be aware of. And it's hard once per turn. As for the next one, we have the Edge, the Capitera. Capitera, like most of the rest of the lineup, you need your opponent to have more monster in control than you do to get some of these effects. For Capitera, it's a very useful effect, especially when you're not in the best situation. You can target one monster opponent controls and send it to the graveyard. That's only if they have more monsters than you, and this is a 16 beat stick. It's not exactly the biggest beat stick, but it's a decent one. But this one's in the air since it's a pterodactyl after all. Yeah, so this one's not bad. If you do link it up, your Link monster gains 1000 attack for the turn. Then we have Chris Jericho, System Stego. So System Stego, when this card special summon, you can add a Dino Wrestler or a World Dino Wrestling field spell from the deck to the hand. If this card's in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn, and your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you get to special summon a Dino Wrestler from the graveyard. So you get a lot of revival effects coming from this particular card. And since it doesn't special summon in defense mode, I think you're able to bring back your big Link boss monster because of it. And this is John Cena. Dun, 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 dun. He is the card that you definitely want 3 of in your future side deck because he's a Cyber Dragon. So you can, in other words, you can special summon out when your opponent controls more monster than you do. That's a good thing. So it doesn't have to be that you control a monster and you're locked out. It just your opponent controls more monster than you do. So 2 or 1, that's fine too. And on top of that, you can tribute a Dino Wrestler, including itself, to pop any card on the field. 26 beat stick. This is the dominant card of the entire Sneak Peek, in my opinion, and it's going to hold a lot of relevance in the actual meta. Now, for our, I guess, The Rock, we have Dino Wrestler T-Rexel. T-Rexel makes it so that your opponent, during their battle phase, you target one of their attack position monsters, and then it has to attack, or else all the other monsters cannot attack. However, if that monster did not declare an attack, now you have to destroy that monster at the end of the battle phase. Now, the field spell limits your opponent down to just 1 battle as long as you're controlling a Dino Wrestler. And if this card's in the graveyard and your opponent controls more monster than you do, banish it, special summon out System Stego, Chris Jericho onto the field, and he is ready to rumble. Okay, I don't know my wrestling terms. And yeah, that's basically Dino Wrestlers. But this guy is the one guy you should remember his face because he's going to be one card that you're probably going to want in your hand in the near future. Danger, danger! It's time for the Danger archetype support. We have 2 Secrets, 1 Ultra, and a bunch of Supers. For our Secrets, we have a level 8 and a level 3. Level 8, we have Thunderbird. Thunderbird is a set popper. If you have anything set, you can target it when this card's discarded, and, well, just pop it. Even if it flips face up, it's too late. Makes your opponent preemptively activate various things, which suscepts them to Twin Twister, which is very amazing. This is really annoying. In fact, the level 4 and 8 side kind of pushes it it more towards the Dark World end, whereas the 3 and 7 side pushes more towards the BA side. That's just kind of my opinion, what I'm taking away from this. As for the level 3, the Tsuchinoko, which is the proper pronunciation for this particular monster, regardless of what happens, if it discards itself, it will summon itself out. If it doesn't discard itself, it will summon itself out from the hand and draw 1 card. Pretty decent monster. Level 3, you can go into Dante, and that's why I think it's more pushing towards the BA danger side. So it's kind of like splitting the path now that we have enough options. For the spell card, we have Danger, Response Team. This Response Team lets you target a danger monster you control and 1 monster on the field and return them to the hand. So it's a non-destructive monster removal. And if this card's in the graveyard, and I believe the trap also carries this effect as well, if this is in the graveyard, you can discard a danger monster and put it to the bottom of the deck and draw 1 card. It's pretty beneficial, especially since you have to discard a danger monster. There are some benefits that you are able to gain from it. As for Danger Mothman, if this card gets discarded, both players gets to draw 1 lamp and discard 1 lamp. I mean card by lamp. But for Dogman, however, if this card gets discarded, it's just 1000 attack debuff on all your opponent's monsters. Yay, they get screwed over. And then we have another attack modifier, 500 in defense gain if you discard a card and target 1 of your danger monsters. Yeah, that's about it. That's the summary of the danger cards. Alright, for the remaining segment here, we're just going to run and gun through all the remaining archetypes and all the remaining cards, but let's go over the ones that are archetype-based support that gain like 5 cards or less, but they change up the flavor and they gain additional playstyles. Starting with Cyberse cards, we have Clock Wyvern. This is just a token summoning card. We have Signet Fusion. We also have Clock Spartoy, which helps you fetch that Signet Fusion, so you can use the Signet Fusion to fuse into Cyberse Clock Dragon using the other card mentioned. And overall, long story short, this guy is a gigantic beatstick, the bigger the Link monster you use for the Link rating. And if you use a Link 4, well, guess what? You get to mill 4 cards, gain 4000 attack, and becomes a target magnet as long as you control a Link monster. And if it's sent to the graveyard by opponent's card effect, you get to fetch a spell card. That's long story short. Then we have Diplexer Chimera. Diplexer Chimera is just one of your other options. I believe your opponent cannot activate spells and traps if you do tribute a Cyberse monster, and during the battle phase, you can just whack your opponent. Pretty fun stuff. Gravekeepers gain fusion access through Spiritualist, and they also, of course, gain a fusion monster. We'll talk about that afterwards. We also have Headman. This is like a Blizzard, where you get to special summon out a monster from the graveyard. You get to special summon out a level 4 Gravekeeper, so you can't summon out Recruiter, but you can summon out Spy face down, which can later on fetch a Recruiter. Kind of the same thing, I don't know, but it helps you get materials for that fusion. And the main card that they gained was Throne of the Necro Valley. This is an amazing card because it gives you a search option. Add a Gravekeeper monster from the deck to your hand. This is their Gravekeeper special Rhoda. And on top of that, you have a second effect where you can just summon out another Gravekeeper monster. It's a normal summon, so it can't really be blocked by much. And that's all it really does. It gives you a search. Of course, it's hard once per turn. So a search card, hard once per turn, that's fair. This is also a really, really good card, especially when you're running down on your luck when it comes to your opponent popping all your Necro Valleys. You get to, during your main phase, guess what? You get to put a Necro Valley from your hand or graveyard straight onto the field. Yeah, that's all it does. During the main phase, if you control no cards in your field zone, you get to activate a Necro Valley from hand or grave. And on top of that, if you do have a Necro Valley and a Gravekeeper on the field, your opponent loses a 500 attack and defense across the board. If this card was destroyed by your opponent's card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can set a Necro Valley spell trap directly from the deck. So that is pretty neat because you can go into Throne of the Necro Valley, you can get an actual copy of Necro Valley. There's just a lot of Necro Valley, Necro Valley, Necro Valley. And of course there is the Gravekeeper's Esper. I believe this guy gains attack based off the materials, and while Necro Valley is on the field, your field zone cannot be destroyed. It protects Necro Valley. That's just super annoying. That's just buff him to the point of no return, and then he protects it. And then during the main phase, you can activate the effect so that during your end phase, you get to add a card to your hand. So that would be the Necro Valley stuff. As for the Noble Knight stuff, you gain 2 Noble Knight cards, I guess technically 4 Noble Knight cards, 1 spell, 1 trap, and 2 monsters. The monster that I really want to talk about is Morgan. This particular card is a hand trap. If you control a noble knight monster with the noble arms, you get to, when your opponent activates any kind of card or effect, you can negate and destroy it by destroying your own noble arms card. Yeah, it's a hand trap exclusive to noble knights that can pop anything and negate anything. That's just really good, and I think it's a smart way to play because you can have these really overpowered hand traps exclusive to various archetypes that really need the boost. And there's 2 other cards, a trap until noble arms are needed again, and then you also have Heritage of the Chalice. Add a noble knight or arms from your deck or graveyard to your hand. This is their special Rhoda. Lots of buff, lots of searching, which makes those Drolls and Ash all the more value. In terms of Galaxy cards, you get Galaxy and Photon cards. You have Galaxy Braver and you have Galaxy Cleric. Cleric acts as a seize material if you want to. And Braver can be a very big beat stick as long as you have the Galaxy monster in your graveyard that it can copy from. And you just have to reveal something to change its level. Transfer summons out 2 Photon or monsters from the graveyard. And then you have Galaxy Soulflare Dragon. I don't know how good this card is, but I'm guessing for Galaxy decks, if you're a fan of Kaito, then this is a card that you definitely want to pick up because it synergizes well with Galaxy Eyes. And I believe it gives you control by discarding 2 Galaxy or Photon cards. Or you can just ditch a Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon. You can target one of your opponent's special summon monster and destroy it. It's a quick effect, so it's pretty annoying. And finally, this run and gun, this is the last little bit. We have Levianeer, the Chaos Dragon, the Chaos Boss monster, depending on the light or dark materials that you use to summon out this card, it gets a different effect. Then we have a Condemned Witch, which can turn into any fairy level 4 monster during your opponent's turn, but on the normal summon of this card, you get to add a Forbidden Quick Play spell from the deck to the hand. Then we have Gokipole. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add a level 4 insect from the deck to your hand. If it's a normal insect, well, guess what? You get to pop a monster that's stronger than the one card that you added, and I believe it special summons out if it's normal. Then there is Diana, the Light Spirit. Light Spirit, like Aqua Spirit, you just get to banish a light monster and special summon this one out. It has a life gaining effect. Then we have the Mystric Holdra. Depending on what you ditch on her summon, you get to add a different card from the graveyard back to your hand. Monster, you get to add a trap. Spell, you get to add a monster. And trap, you get to add a spell. Then we have Block Bear, or Bear Block. This one protects your spell and traps from being destroyed by your opponent's card effect during your opponent's turn. However, during your turn, if they do get popped, you gain 800 attack. Then there's Token Collector. If this card is in the graveyard, when your opponent summons out a token, or if anyone summons out a token, you get to special summon out this card out, and it destroys all those tokens and gains attack, and neither player can summon out tokens. So this is like a token canceler, like screw you, Scapegoat, just eat a token collector. Then there's Fluffle Patchwork, which is support for Fluffles. I believe this was a jump card. Then we have the TCG exclusive card, Elvis. Elvis the Nordic Afar. I think this card works really well with the Nordic Link, especially if it gets banished by the Nordic Link monster. I think you get to do and gain more effects and special summon even more dudes, but that's just me. I don't exactly read this card. I didn't read this card. Then there's the Incantation. We have the Plume Pencil, and we have ourselves the Bookstone. Both of these guys, different levels, 3 and 5 compared to the 4 and 6 previously. And these guys, I believe, retrieve cards out of the graveyard instead. Then there's the 2-man salesman, or the 2-for-1 salesman. These guys, they're kind of gimmicky. They're really funny. They're trying to sell the Super Helper Robo and the Dustin Mop. But okay, so depending on what you reveal once per turn, both players have to reveal one card at the same time. And if both players reveal a monster, both players get to summon it. And if you reveal a spell, both players get to draw 2 cards, which I don't think you want your opponent to do, because if they get to combo off and kill you, even if you draw 2 cards, it will be kind of useless. If it's trapped, both players get to send 2 cards from their deck to the graveyard. Again, synergizing very well. I don't know how you're going to talk with your opponent. Are you going to be like, hey, I'm going to reveal this card, and then they reveal the same card? Maybe you can work something out? I don't know. So Sky Strikers, they gain the Vector Blast, which lets them mill 2 cards off the top of their deck. I guess both players get to mill 2 cards. I guess helping both players. And if there's 3 or more spell cards, of course the extra zone monsters get killed and get basically shuffled back into the deck. So that's pretty good. Then there's Herald of the Abyss. I guess a monster remover at the cost of 1500 life points. You declare one attribute, 1 type, and then you get to remove that monster and send it to the graveyard. Well, you don't do it yourself. You make your opponent do it, and then they can't even proc any effect because that monster has its effect negated. And then another search card. Look at all these search cards. You got Noble Knights getting a search card. You get this Fright Fluffles getting a search card. You get Fright for Patchwork. Every deck is basically getting a search card. Necro Valley is getting a search card. Yeah, and then we have Giant Ballpark. I believe this one lets you spam a bunch of insects during damage calculation. If a player would take battle damage, neither player would take any battle damage, and then you can send a level 4 insect from your deck to your grave. And if that is a normal monster, you get to special summon that many monster from the graveyard. That's pretty crazy. Then there's Rockin' Outlet. I don't think that's the actual name, but this is the way to convert your defense into attack. And the other monster you control cannot attack. But if you have a really beefy defensive monster, this is one card that you probably want to transfer all the attack and potentially OTK your opponent. If you use this with a Thunder Dragon, like one of the big Thunder Dragons, I believe they have like 5k or even over 6k just by transferring the attack once. Then there's Extra Foolish Burial. Send an extra deck monster to the graveyard by paying half your life. Very expensive. I don't think you can ash this one. Yeah, you can't ash this. It's an extra deck. And then there's Parallel Panzer. Literally put a gun in the mouth of your Link monster. So you go up to a Link monster, you can move it to a zone that it points to, and then you can send this equipped card to the graveyard, destroy a card in the same column as the equipped monsters. That's kind of funny. You're literally just like, here's a gun in your mouth and pow a card on the field. So I guess in terms of situational utility, you got that. You got the situational utility. As for the extra deck monsters, you've got one Crusadia monster requiring 2 effect monster, including 1 Crusadia. Gains attack. Same deal as before. This is another 2, but it points in down and points left. Okay, once per turn, if an effect monster special summon to a zone, this card points to target one monster in either player's main monster zone except this card, move it to another zone. Kind of lackluster in my opinion. If you got a monster for hire, if you got 3 monsters of a different type, you can use this guy and special summon it. It cannot be used as a link material, so it's a kind of a final boss kind of deal. And you get to special summon a for hire monster in your deck. Or sorry, a monster for hire. God, I really hate that. So I guess you get to link up now. That's kind of fun. And then there's Dragon Algave. This is kind of a lackluster monster in my opinion. It's a worm. Depending on what's in your graveyard, you get different kinds of effects. If you have dinosaurs, sea serpents, worms, and dragons, depending on what you do, you get a different effect. In terms of our trap lineup, we have the Nimble Manta Catches the Worm. This is not the Nimble Manta Catches the Worm. This is something else in terms of the name. But if you're somehow able to summon out 3 Link Karibos, or you're able to put 3 of the same fairy monster on the field, use it to fetch 3 Honest, in my opinion. You can fetch 3 copies of the exact same card. There's Necro Fusion, where you can fuse from the graveyard. Of course, you banish the material face down. Crusadia Crawler. It's a token monster, 21 defense. And if it's summoned out this way and onto a zone that a Link monster points to, you get to add a World Legacy card. Hooray! Then we have Revenge of the Normal. Special summon out level 4 or lower monsters from your hand up to the number of monsters your opponent controls. Okay, that's pretty cool. Invincible Halo. I don't really like this card in particular because it's a continuous trap and you get to banish a card that you control to negate the effects of monsters of the same type. It's like kind of D-barrier-ish, but worse. Then there is Trap Trick, amazing card that lets you fetch out basically any normal trap in your deck. And we have the Toll Ramp Up, or the extra toll. To attack, it adds a cost to attack where you have to send a card from your hand to the graveyard. It's kind of pricey. It's really pricey. It reminds me of a Gravekeeper's Servant, where if you attack, you have to mill a card, but like Macrocosmos is on the field, you just can't do it. So if Macrocosmos was on the field, I'm assuming you cannot attack while this card is face up on the field. And finally, this Consolation Prize. If you sent a card, send a monster from the hand to the graveyard, you can target one of those cards and special summon. I see potential with this card. If you ditch a really big monster and then you just get it back, get a free summon of that monster, like say a Morphage Goliath or something like that, or Blue Eyes White Dragon, or any sort of big beat stick that you just want to leave on the field. Yeah, this doesn't sound too bad if you ask me. But that covers every freaking card in this particular set. Hopefully you're aware of at least the basic info of what they are able to do and what this particular set has offered to the player base and how it's going to shift the meta. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit me up with a thumbs up. If you guys want to see more stuff from MST.TV, like a Thunder Dragon profile, it's going to be a proxy profile to keep you guys ahead of the game before you collect the whole deck, so that you guys don't overspend perhaps. Well, hit that subscribe button, and as always, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV. And now I have lost all my life points. End my turn. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this video, please drop us a like so we know we are doing a good job, and you can also subscribe to MST.TV for more fantastic videos by clicking on the button on the left. Don't forget to check out our partners at Imperium Duelist. They make really high quality mats, including some of my own limited edition release stuff. And if you want to check out one of our past videos, click here on the right. As always, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV, and I'll see you next time.